Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going through the Colorado Avalanche road to the Stanley Cup Final. Now as I'm recording this, we don't know yet who the Avs will face in the last series, whether it's Tampa or the Rangers, but the Avs have had a roller coaster, topsy-turvy season so far, with some serious highs that we've seen recently and some pretty big lows. But when it comes to this Avs season, how did they get to the Stanley Cup Final this year? What moves did they make, and what were the biggest events throughout this year for them? Watch till the end for all of the recaps, and make sure to hit that subscribe button to the Sportsnet YouTube channel for the best sports coverage around. And without further ado, let's get into the craziness that was this Avs season. Now, going back to the offseason before this year even began, the Avs were pretty busy with one of their big-time players in Grav going to free agency and signing with Seattle. The Avs needed to get a starting goaltender, and they needed to get one quick, and they ended up trading for Darcy Kuemper for a first and Connor Timmins. And going into the season, I expected the Avs to be first place and contending for a President's Trophy, and I think most of you guys expected that too. So let's go on to December 1st and see how the Avs are doing. They should be number one, right? Ooh. Now, the Avs season didn't exactly start off perfectly. They were still 11-7-1, but they were behind in their division. I think a lot of that was because of Darcy Kuemper not being up to snuff and not being as good as he should have been, especially in those first couple of months. He would get better and would be great in that second half, but it was a real problem at the start of the season. But still, the Avs after that were able to create some really great momentum, and around the All-Star break, they were one of the best teams in the entire NHL. So even though there was a big scare at the moment and at the time, there was a chance that Colorado maybe doesn't miss the playoffs, but is in a much lesser seed than we all expected and wouldn't be in that President's Trophy race. And although they didn't get the President's Trophy by the end, they still did very well and good enough to where Joe Sakic made some big moves at the deadline. Now, going into trade deadline week, there were tons of rumors surrounding this Avs team. If you guys remember, Claude Giroux had his top two teams that he wanted to go to, being Colorado and the Florida Panthers. He obviously chose the Panthers instead, and I think the Avs dodged a huge bullet there. Even going into trade deadline week, I knew the Avs needed to go after and get their Blake Coleman, their Barclay Goodrow, that middle six player that makes life so difficult for opposing defenders and really puts off some of the forechecking pressure and just overall pressure on that top six, and specifically that top line. And they didn't go after Drew. They weren't able to make that trade happen, but they didn't go for any other top guys. Their first trade was Josh Manson, who ended up having the price tag of Hellison and a second round pick in 2023. A cost that for the Avs, you might as well make for a player that has been so good for them now in the playoffs especially. But the big one was Arturi Lehkonen, who cost Justin Barron and a 2024 second round pick. And to me, that was the trade at that point that I thought Colorado was perfectly making. That was a deal that with Lehkonen obviously being so influential in that Habs playoff run in 2021, that was the exact type of player that was under the radar, didn't cost too much, and was exactly what Colorado needed. Lehkonen has obviously proved himself as a playoff player, but he's kind of always been along those lines. And I thought for Colorado, that was a brilliant deal to make. And you combine that again with the Josh Manson deal, the Nico Sturm deal, which I thought was also better for them in the playoffs, and also getting Andrew Cogliano for some big experience and some solid depth on that fourth line. To me, the Avs had one of the best trade deadlines even back then on deadline day. So the Avs head into the NHL playoffs on the final day of the regular season. The Preds are confirmed to be the Avs' first round opponents. And the thing was, a couple days before the last game, UC Saros had his injury, but we didn't know if he'd be in there for game one, if he'd miss games, if he'd be out for the entire series. It was all kind of up in the wild, but UC Saros missed game one. Avs win. Okay, we'll see what happens. Misses game two. Avs win. Maybe he comes back for the third game. Maybe not. Misses game three. Avs win. 3-0 lead. Misses game four. Avs win that too. But honestly, looking at the games, even if UC Saros was in them, I don't think much changes. So the Colorado Avalanche was basically me when I play Smash Bros versus my little brother, and I don't take it easy on him. So Avs win in 4 and go on to the much better opponent in the St. Louis Blues. This was a much stronger, tough, and big opponent than the Nashville Predators could ever hope to be in the St. Louis Blues. At Game 1, though, it was a close and crazy game, and it ended up going to overtime, and just barely Josh Manson was able to get the OT winner and put the Avs over the top.
The net, now he has it, over to Manson, to Girard, who shoots, tipped, Binnington, oh my goodness, Jordan Binnington putting on a clinic here. Manson looking to shoot, now he does, and he scores!
Now, Game 1 was electric for the Avs, but Game 2 was a little bit of a different story with the Blues controlling most of the momentum.
Which has about 9:30-ish left, and here comes Perron, 2-on-1 for the Blues, he shoots, he scores! There's another one for Perron, his 7th of the playoffs, his 2nd of the game, and the Blues regain their 2-goal lead.
So the Avs go back to St. Louis with a 1-1 series tie. Not exactly ideal, and not exactly ideal with that Game 2 stinker and the Blues having that massive momentum going back to St. Louis. But with the Avs, you've got to give credit for just how good of a team they've been on the road, and they got back-to-back wins and were up 3-1 in the series. And then heading into Game 5 in Colorado with a chance to take the Blues out, there were multiple times the Avs could have just gotten it done there, but the Blues snuck all the way back to win it.
Over to Leddy, he kicked it in, puck knocked out, Bozak has it, high slot, shooting, he scores! Tyler Bozak is the overtime hero, forcing the series back to St. Louis for Game 6.
And to me, Game 6 was pivotal. Even though I saw the Avs maybe winning this series in 7, even if they lost that Game 6, at the same time with how much you choked in that Game 5 in Colorado, there maybe wasn't as much confidence going back to Colorado to get in Game 7, where they've been in this slot before, to actually be able to get it done and move on to the Western Conference Finals. But the Avs were able to win a super close game. It was going to go to overtime until Darren Helm did his thing.
Makar is there behind his own net. Maybe a last opportunity here in the third. Eric Johnson dishes the pass to the near side. Helm shoots, scores! Can you believe it? 4.9 seconds left, and that might be the series clincher.
So the Avs are just able, and literally just able by seconds, to get past the St. Louis Blues. And from everything so far, I think the Blues put the Avs to their realest test in every single way. The biggest and the most physical team they faced up to this point, even including Edmonton, was the team that pushed them the most. Now, for the Avs, they're still in a fantastic spot and are 12-2 in this year's playoffs, but St. Louis really gave them a lot there. And if it wasn't for that Darren Helm goal, I could have easily seen St. Louis winning that game in overtime and putting it all to a Game 7. But then we had this next series versus Edmonton, and of course, with the high power of McDavid, with McKinnon, with Makar, with Draisaitl, goals were bound to happen, but Game 1 was an instant classic.
And around it comes for Yamamoto. Flick to hit, it's a break, Evander caves in, scores! Kickstarter for the Oilers. Hit the target yet, the Oilers have been credited with 3. Here's McKinnon dashing in, scores! Of the playoffs for Zach Hyman, who had a pair in Game 1 against Calgary. That one finished 9-6. Scores! Cale Makar! They might be headed to 9-6 tonight. Cassian tried to dig it loose, and away goes Logan O'Connor, the former DU product. Across! Scores!
And as we were all watching it, of course, on Steve Dangle's stream here on the Sportsnet YouTube channel, we were all going crazy and watching all the goals happen. But Game 2 was a game that needed to happen for Colorado. They needed to completely shut down Edmonton and shut down Connor McDavid, and they did that in beautiful fashion.
Losing his glove was Smith. He got it back. McKinnon scores! Mike Smith never got the glove off.
So the Avs go back to Edmonton with a 2-0 lead and had that huge bombastic game while also shutting them out quite well. Game 3 was super important, and thankfully for them, it went their way too. Now the Avs have the 3-0 lead, but they know they can't sit pretty, and they want to get it done as soon as humanly possible, like they've done for most of the playoffs so far. And heading into that Game 4, it was wackiness, kind of like Game 1. We saw so many goals back and forth, and again, the Avs were in the position, in overtime, to get the job done, and they did.
On the draw, Helm up with it. Here's Makar, loose in front, Arturi Lehkonen has scored, and for the second straight year, he sent his team in overtime to the Stanley Cup Final.
And just like that, with the OT goal, Arturi Lehkonen back-to-back years to send his team to the Stanley Cup Final, just like that. Absolutely beautiful, just like they drew it up, of course. But the Avs now are going on to the Stanley Cup Final with that goal. Again, 12-2 record in this year's playoffs. Dominant possession and form versus Nashville and Edmonton, and looks still pretty great versus St. Louis. One of the biggest things I think throughout this playoff run so far for the Avs is the health. Even though there's been some scares here and there, and Samuel Girard was a big injury, they've held their own for the most part, and you consider what they've had to go through over the last couple of years before this year, it proves the Avs have taken that next step. If they can stay healthy going into this Stanley Cup Final, then I think they have a pretty strong chance versus Tampa, but a really good chance too if it's the Rangers. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to the Sportsnet YouTube channel. Make sure you also comment down below, what are your thoughts on this Avs playoff run? What are your thoughts on this video? And also let us know, what are your predictions for the Avs in the Cup Final? Whether it be versus Tampa, whether it be versus New York. Do you see them winning against them? How many games do you see them losing? Let us know your thoughts down below. Make sure you get this video to all Avs fans and NHL fans you guys know online. And I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Drink some water. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.